Welcome back to 20 Minutes of Clarity, your go-to podcast for financial information so you can make better informed financial decisions. I'm your host, Jason Noble, and with me today is Andy, the man merchant. Now, this is February, and this air is in the love is in
Hello.
the air as we talked about it. We got to talk about finances too. That's in the air. The last podcast, we talked about a married couple, right? And the things that they could be doing to have those financial conversations to create that harmony and blissfulness in their marriage. Today, we're going to talk to those specifically around that are in a relationship or even maybe single, but they're not married yet. Okay, so if you're married, you might want to fast forward a little bit, or you can hang around and just see what it could be. Now, I was talking with Andy about this topic because it's very similar to what we discussed already. However, there are nuances that make it unique and different, I'll just go money can't buy love, but it sure can complicate it, right?
So
And
true.
you may be coming into a relationship with different income expectations, different goals, different backgrounds and experiences when it comes to finances and money. And those differences, they may seem cute at first, but if not addressed, it could create long-lasting issues. So we want to get ahead of that right now. And so, Andy, I know we're going to break this down into three main topics. Really, first one being into financial transparency. Can you talk us through the importance of financial transparency when it comes to a new budding relationship that's getting more serious?
Yeah.
How and why that fits in?
And I think this is probably the most important one of the three that we're going to highlight today is around financial transparency. And the real question is when do you bring it up, right? I mean, obviously, if you're new into a relationship, probably having this conversation just it brings in that level of complication that's unnecessary. But if you're in that set phase of life where maybe you're transparent or transitioning into the next phase of life and you see a long-term financial, then it's really important to start really having the conversation. But as we kind of talk a lot, right, Jason, it's like if you go too long without having this conversation because you don't know, and then all of a sudden you go wham and you hit them right off the bat with, okay, hey, before we take the next step, let's have a little transparency. Start to incorporate this, into your kind of everyday conversation.
Gotta ask, it's that guideline, right? Because I've been out of that scene for so long. So have you, Andy, right? But like, I'm just thinking, if there's a toothbrush, if there are toothbrushes over your house,
Oh,
they start or clothing, they have some
yep.
clothing there. I'm not talking like just like a couple pairs of shoes. I'm talking they got some clothing there, right? Okay. Did they help you buy a piece of furniture? What I mean by help,
Yep.
right? Maybe not financially, but were they there part of the decision process? Have you noticed a piece of your furniture missing? Okay. We're talking to you, okay?
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
if you went on a couple dates and you're still finding out their favorite color and all that stuff, oh, nah, we're
Yep.
not really having this topic for you.
And that's why we want to have it because the biggest question we get from a lot of people when we get asked about this in the financial space that we're in is I don't even know how to bring it up. It's a hard conversation. Nobody likes to talk about money yet. We're not married. It's not necessary, but really understanding who that future spouse of yours is going to be, how they approach money. So common question is just like, hey, let's just be open. Let's just talk. How has money impacted your life to this point? Right? I mean, you're gonna know these habits. If you notice that, to your point, some of them are out there maybe spending a lot. Maybe they always have to have these. That's not for us. We're not here to determine how your love should be determined and how it should be valued, but understanding what past experience have kind of brought into the relationship, right? Understanding where you are, obviously, in your financial roadmap or your journey. If you're someone that's just starting out, that's a much easier conversation to have because you're probably both on a very similar page. Versus if you're that person who's transitioning out of a marriage and into a new marriage, right? That brings a whole other set of complexities to the situation. And there could be other things that maybe some of the things need to be a joint account in that transparent conversation. Some of those things might need to be separated. And there could be some of those legal conversations that'll eventually come up out of it. We're not going to talk onto that because that's always a sore one. But when it comes to financial transparency, what I think we really wanted to highlight today is start the conversation with just how people have always had what their relationship with money has been. I'll tell you, it's not as hard as many of you might be thinking because Jason and I do it almost every single day when we do our core value meeting. The first question both of us ask is, let's just start off by what's your history and your past mindset towards money? Because that'll drive a lot of conversations, right? Then understanding that if, hey, there's some complex situations, you don't have to open up the door and talk about the entire treasure chest. You can say there's some other investments that we have out there that we'll eventually talk about. But it's really important to kind of understand what mindset is to make sure you line there, because you will have that transparent communication at someone in the future. So that's kind of my highlight. I think I keep it simple here because this is a hard one to open the door if you're single looking to add. But Jason, what are you going to add to it?
I disagree with you wholeheartedly, Andy. Get in there. I mean, okay, if you're thinking about putting a ring on it, or you're thinking about saying yes if they're gonna ask you, get in. I mean, like, no, like, listen, like, no more niceties. Okay, you already know all of my ugliness, and you think it's cute right now. Like, let's get in. How much debt do you got? Okay, how much credit card do you got? What kind of money you making? Right, right. Okay, you're working at this place. What are your goals for your career? What does that look like? Do you want to have children? Right? About what are you? What's your timeline on that? Right? What are you thinking on that side? No, I mean, okay. First starting out dating, none of your business. Don't ask me what I'm making when my debt is.
Yeah.
Right? But you start having your toothbrush over and you start putting clothes in my house. Yeah, we're gonna have a conversation, right? Unless you're trying to be a hoarder, right? And you're just like just gonna like move in. No, we're gonna talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I no, I like set the tone of the relationship you want to have. Get it out there and talk through it,
Which is why I love
right?
this podcast, because we have two different approaches.
Well, no,
But at the end,
okay, I would get my bonuses when I first started out in the industry on a monthly basis. That's what I would. I got a base and I got a bonus. So I would to go on dates with Rachel, I would go on the credit card and then pay it off with my bonus. So one of the bonuses came in lower than expected. So I had to carry that debt into the next month and I had that carry over. Somehow Rachel was like, "Hey, so I know you're a financial advisor and everything, and I'm assuming you're making good money. Do you have any credit card debt?" And I was like, "Actually, I do. Why do you ask?" And she was like, "Well, I just was raised where you never had credit card debt. If you can't afford it, you don't buy it." And I was like, "I have some credit card debt, but I'll be able to pay that off with my next bonus." She was like, "Hey, if we continue dating, I don't ever want that to be the case. I'd rather stay at home, hang out with you at home, Netflix and chill before there was Netflix and chill, right? Where you're just hanging out at home and watching like
mm-hmm,
whatever came on the TV, right? Right?
planned
Then
ahead,
for us to
newspaper.
right?
Yeah.
Or like going to Blockbuster, getting that movie, being so excited to go home and pop that in, right? But like, yeah, we go back. Her and I go back. What am I getting into that, Andy? Is like she had the courage to have that conversation with me, and it set the tone for our marriage, right? It set the tone for our relationship. Where I'm going, hey, I'm looking at the bonus being a little bit lighter. We're not going to be able to go out as much and do these things. She was totally okay with that. Now, what if she wasn't okay with that? I don't know. I don't have to worry
That's a
about that because
that's a
she
different
was.
profession than what we're in to answer.
Right? But financial transparency isn't just about numbers.
Yeah.
It's about understanding where you and your partner are coming from so that you can move forward together, right? And I think it's important that we talk about the next topic on this being managing finances as a team. Andy,
Yeah.
take me away from on that. Take this away from me.
Well, I mean, 100%, right? That's the big part of what last week's topic was all about, was, having that harmony when it comes to it. But it's so important that, especially if you're going to rip the band-aid off, to your point, Jason, jump right into it, be as transparent as possible with it. Then now you need to start making decisions together as a team. You got to start to answer the tough question. How do I commingle accounts? Do we separate things? How do we spend money? Do I want to fund this versus you want to fund that? And then you're always going to have kind of that income dispersion, right? You're going to have those different numbers that are coming in, and who's going to pay the rent here and who's going to share in that. So coming together as a team and sitting down, taking that transparent conversation. is so important. But now, additionally, if you're moving forward in that path, you're going to have to start thinking about what's that long term picture look like. You know, if that journey that Jason alluded to includes kids or includes an early retirement or travel or other habits, you probably have a lot of similarities already. That's why you attracted to one another. But now you got to start asking those questions around what are we going to do? How are we going to save? And how do we take that team goal together and then start the relationship off on the right foot, which is let's do this as a team and not fall into that trap that we talked about last week for a long-term marriage couple that one's handling all the finances, the other one's not really clue what's going on, and then trying to figure that out 10 or 15 years into it. Eliminate the confusing part of the complicated part of the money situation. That's the big part of this one. What do you got to add?
Well, I kind of look at it is where are they coming in? Like, what's their history? Like, let's say you have two high income earners that are getting together. Awesome power couple, right? Go crush the world. The world is your oyster. But how do you handle debt management? How do you handle the bonuses that come in? What's your cash flow look like? What do you do together? What do you do separate? What do you do in a hybrid kind of approach? What does that look like? And having those kind of conversations. And as things progress, providing more transparency into like other aspects that are coming into the financial picture. Such an
Mm-hmm.
important aspect of it. However, I see a lot of times dispersion, excuse me, not disparity, but dispersion. Like we have one person who's a high income earner and the other one is just starting out, it seems like, where something was holding them back. Maybe student loans were in their way, and then now they're on the other side of that. Who knows? What could be so many different
Mm-hmm.
variables there. The thing that I'm asking the couple to start having conversations around is that transparency that I talked about earlier so they could start building that teamwork together. For instance, there was this couple that came, I was working with the boyfriend, and he says to me in one of the meetings, might have to start budgeting for a ring now. I'm thinking about proposing. I'm like, that's wonderful, super excited. Leave it to me. I have a checklist for him and his girlfriend to go through, and they could have start that open conversation. In there, it was discovered in that conversation she has $60,000 of credit card debt. What caused the credit card debt in that situation was when she went through a period of depression, she started buying high-end designer shoes. Wonderful
It's always a
wardrobe,
solution.
but it was her way of medicating and not getting the proper help. So he says to her, and he loves her dearly, he goes, listen, I love you so much that we're not going to proceed to the next phase of our relationship until you get the proper help. And we got to come up with a good process for you to pay down this debt. She took responsibility. She did get the help. She did work on her cash flow. I helped her out with that so that she could start paying down that debt as the debt snowball. Well, now they're married. But they started that foundation and that teamwork together by identifying the root cause. Another couple, I was working with the lower income. He was just getting out of like debt and he's starting off in his career. He was like, I'm really excited. I found the one. So I sent him the same checklist. It's uncovered she has $110,000 of student loan debt. Well, she's in the medical profession. She's going to be the high income earner over time, right? But this debt is something that's hanging on to them. We were able to do some stuff with our student loans because in the medical profession, there's things that we have available. They also had a goal of buying a home together. Again, as a medical professional, there's certain like underwriting things that could be done for the mortgage. We're able to get her connected with someone that does that specifically for the medical profession. So we built this infrastructure around, and his financial plan and her financial plan had to evolve and morph into their relationship plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I gave two different examples, right? Of there's that dispersion between the relationship, and I also discuss what if you both come in as a high income earner. But it's that teamwork that's coming in, and it's that building out that system and setting up those financial priorities. Managing finances as a team is less about who makes more and more about working together to achieve your goals. Whether that's saving for the first home or funding that dream retirement. And as we look at the next segment, long term financial goals and protection, Andy,
Yeah.
kick us off on this segment as well.
Well, and I love everything we've kicked off. And I think another highlight that's really important to note here is that if you've had financial transparency, if you guys are committed to working as a team, and now it's time to focus on your goals, that's where the clear picture roadmap journey came that we've developed comes out, the training, right? Do it together. If you go to clearpicturefinancial.com, there's a link that'll take you through a do it yourself journey that you guys can do together, right? It's such a powerful way to really kind of give that reset, to have that financial transparency, to set and identify, or it's really better to identify than set those priorities that you want to focus on. And then you start to work together as a team. And they're all built on what we're talking about right now is how do you still ensure that you're going to have those long-term financial goals that you've set for yourself either individually that are now shifting to individual plus togetherness. And then what are you doing in order to protect those? Now that you've got a significant other to protect in a family, now there's an income that's dependent. You've alluded to a lot of that, Jason, in our conversation is, one might be able to drive forces earlier. Someone may stay home and take care of and raise kids. There's that plan is your conversation, but being able to protect that family from if you don't come home from work, right? How are you ensuring that your family's hardships aren't being met? How are you ensuring that maybe that overspending or those acts of where you get down or you get into a situation of financial stress that you're going to be able to protect and get out of that together from a conversation. So I think it's important to always remember long-term planning is important in this particular segment of it all. Having conversations around what does our home ownership and our retirement and our long-term gifting going to look at? Do we want to build emergency funds? Do we want to help with do we have any perceived medical issues that might come out? So there's a lot of things that come in, but my last point, and I love how you're bringing us home on so much detail on this topic, Jason, but now you got to start thinking about the ever important wills and trusts, right? Because now it's gone from your money, which is pretty easy to identify, to our money conversation, right? And our money needs to have other rules and discussions, especially if you're a if your marriage is starting off from you've been married before, right? Especially when it comes to that, you want to protect your bloodline. You want to have those conversations. These are all so important to have early, but it all starts really, I can't stress it enough, with the clear picture wealth journey and identifying those priorities. But those are my big topics to kind of hit on today.
The reason why I think it's so important to just have like the conversation around that is like if you happen to live in, let's say, a state that has community property, Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
California, Texas, to name a few, if the debt is brought into the marriage by one person and they ended up passing away prematurely, in those states, there's a good chance that you're going to be responsible for paying off that debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so in both those cases that I mentioned earlier, they both lived in California. Hence why it was such important that we have the conversation. And I really emphasize make sure you understand the debt side of the balance sheet as well, right? Right. But then just going into the goals and protection, you could get insurance or whatever to cover that debt cost. You could get insurance to cover your life expectancy or what your income would be so that your surviving spouse has those resources to stay on their feet, right? Um, pay off the mortgage. There's so many different variables and considerations that come in on that side of the equation. It's asking those key questions like how will we handle emergencies like loss of a job or medical issues? Um, what are some of our long-term goals that we really want to achieve together, whether that be homeownership, retirement, philanthropy? I mean, there's so many different things that could be answered within that question, right? And then, as you and I, Andy, are responsible for working with our clients, is to make sure we're building out that Cash management account, that emergency savings, retirement accounts, proper insurance calculations, proper estate planning, right? If you don't have a financial advisor, that's when you go seek one that can help you with these things. Such an important thing. Now, whether you're planning a legacy or just figuring out how to make your savings last, long term financial alignment is key to a strong and happy partnership. Andy, any parting words as I wrap up?
I think you've given a good action plan. I think you're going to bring it home with the final takeaway. So let's kick this off so everybody can get planning for their big week of the love and wealth. So kick us home.
I would say this: plan a money date to start these conversations with your partner. That's the big takeaway here. Other than that, we like you to like, subscribe, follow, and forward this conversation to someone you believe this could help. That was Andy, the man merchant. I am Jason Noble. You just watched and listened to 20 Minutes of Clarity. Thank you so much, and tune in next week for another episode.